If I can't translate it onto like a quote unquote normal body, how in the hell am I going to translate it to my body? She's a one-handed girl, she's swimming, like I'm not going to go around in circles, I'll be fine. So I had one guy on Bumble message me like an entire essay as to why I will never understand the lyrics to Red Right Hand. So you know, like the theme tune to Peaky Blinders, it's called Red Right Hand.
I do.
And so he sent me like an entire essay as to why I'd never understand it. And I was like, I just think that's quite niche.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to Jordan Jarrett-Bryan's The Coolest Disabled in the World. Yes, that is me. Challenge me, fight me, I dare you, because you know you will lose. This is the podcast where I invite amazing people on who are doing amazing things. And we just have a chat. We chat about all the dope things that they're doing because I'm nosy. It plays to my journalistic instincts. I'm just nosy and like having a laugh and a chat. Oh, and also they may or may not have a disability. Spoiler alert, they have a disability. And we're going to have a chat. And I've got some great people coming up on future podcasts. But let's talk about today's podcast, where I've got an amazingly dope guest, a young lady on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk about because she is, as I said twice before, she's super dope. Brooke Milhouse is this new term I've heard about, adaptive athlete. I'm loving that. Podcast superstar and public speaker as well. She's amazing. Brooke, how the bloody hell are you?
What an introduction. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm very, very well, thank you. It's been a long day, but it's been a good day. How's your day been?
Yeah. Do you know what? Exactly the same. Long day, but a really, really good day. I recently bought a house and I kind of just got like the final little bits and pieces are going in tomorrow. And so today was kind of the last day of like moving little bits in. Tomorrow will be like my first night there. So it's that I've been doing this for like a really long time. Like the renovation took way longer than I thought it was going to take. So it's like, it's finally coming to a head and I'm so freaking excited about it. So yeah, long day, but really good day.
So on that, let me ask you, are you the sort of person that when you've got your house or you're getting your house, are you going to have a big blowout messy party before all the good stuff goes in? Or do you want to invite people around for a party when your house looks all amazing and bougie?
So I am the type of person that I'm not very good with mess. And so I've had to have my house done before I move into it. So like all the decorating, all the bits and pieces has all got to be complete, because for me, the idea of waking up with like brick dust in my tea for my cup of like morning tea makes me feel really quite unwell. There's something about it that just gives me like, ugh. So my plan is to get me moved in. I don't really care if like all the bits and pieces aren't there, but like being able to have all of my mates in that space once I'm there is going to be like epic. And I think we'll probably have a really cute evening. We'll have some dinner, have some drinks. And because it's my house, I can get as drunk as I want because I don't have to go home.
You can.
Like I'm at home. You
just got to be carried up the stairs to your bedroom where you can be sick.
I might crawl up the stairs.
I love that. Well, well done. It's especially in these times, it's no mean feat to purchase a home. So big up you. I also want to say we were meant to record this last week, and then you said that you wasn't feeling particularly well. First of all, are you feeling better?
Yeah. I honestly, my voice and like just, you know, when your whole face and your whole head just feels like if you cut it off, it would actually be a relief. Because I just had really tight sinuses. Wow. I had a cold. Like it just wasn't a vibe. And you know when you like get bored, so I get really bored really easily. And the idea of me being in bed for like 3 consecutive days is actually a bit of a nightmare. And I like hit my 3rd day and I was like, I can't cope anymore. Like I need to do something, but I was so unwell that actually I couldn't do anything. And so that was like a nice little lesson of like learning how to rest. Don't think I've actually learned how to rest from it, but like here we are. I feel great now.
Well, what I want to also know, Brooke, is are you one of those people that when you catch a cold, you're like out for 2 weeks? Because I often hear from people that I work with and people that I know that, I've had this cold for 2 weeks. I'm like, who has a cold for 2 weeks? Like, I don't understand these people, Brooke. Like, I wasn't feeling particularly well last week either for a couple of days. But
Mhm.
if I feel it coming on, throat gets a little bit so and so, nose you can
Yeah.
feel it. Boom! I'm ODing on ginger. I'm ODing on garlic. I'm getting the lemon out. I'm getting the hot water out. Boom! 48 hours
Yeah.
max. I'm back to JJB,
Mhm.
right? So I don't get when people say to me, "Oh, yeah, I've had this cold for 2 weeks." I'm like, that's either not a cold, first of all, or it's a
Yeah.
cold, but you're still wearing shorts or a dress or stuff that's revealing you're not dressing appropriately. You're still getting drunk. You're not eating. Who has a cold for 2 weeks? Who are these people? I don't want to know
I'm
if you're
kind of with
one
you
of these
on that.
people.
I'm with you on that. So, like,
Okay. Okay.
I don't really like to be slowed down. And so, like, the idea that I slowed down for like 3 days and didn't do like any exercise, didn't leave my house, it's a bit of a nightmare. And so I must have been pretty unwell. Because I'm like that. If I feel like any inkling or niggling of something, I'm like, get to bed straight away, get me paracetamol, dose me up, get me good sleep, get me like 3 proper decent meals, and it will sort itself out. But I just, for whatever reason, nothing was budging last week, and I was like, this is not okay.
Not good. Not good. Okay. I just wanted to check you were one of those people because I don't know these people. And when I hear people talking on the tube or at work, I'm like, yeah, it's been 2 weeks. I'm like,
2
so,
weeks is
okay.
also a really long time to not be well.
That's,
Like, go and sort yourself
that's
out and
ages.
adult yourself.
And just don't
Like,
come outside. Maybe just keep yourself
yeah.
at home because what you've got clearly
Yeah.
needs to be sorted out. Anyway, okay. Just want to make sure. I was lucky enough to come on your podcast. I want to talk about your
Mhm.
podcast, Disabled and Proud, about 18 months ago. I want to know why you felt the need to be the 4,7,004,204th person to start up a podcast. What was the motivation behind you starting up a podcast?
Yeah. So I was so bored of the narrative around disabled people, particularly in the UK. And when we think about like British media, tends to swing between either like this unsung hero who has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with their tongue and therefore they've overcome, in like, air quotes, their disability, and they're superhuman, and they've elevated their status above almost everybody else. Or the other side of that coin is you're a benefit scrounger and you're a down and out, and like life is not worth living, and being disabled is shit. And realistically, it's getting better now, but within the UK media, that's been the two tales that I heard of like my entire life, right? And there wasn't really like anything in between. And it kind of came to me as a brainwave as I was driving home in my car. And I was like, if I want to hear these conversations of just disabled people just doing good stuff, like they don't have to be quote unquote famous. I just want to hear about like the disabled businessman who's smashing it, or like, an entrepreneur who happens to be disabled. I want to hear these stories. Where are they? Because they've got to be out there if I want to listen to them. And I'm a big believer in there's no real such thing as an original thought anymore. So, like, if I had that thought and I wanted to hear it, there's got to be other people out there who also want to hear these conversations. And I kind of just took a bit of a punt on it, really, if I'm being honest. Like, I didn't know if I was going to get past the first 5 episodes.
Mm.
I did get past the first 5 episodes. And then I really found that I just got really wrapped up in it, and I really, really loved it. And having these conversations kind of widened my horizons in terms of like my knowledge of disability, and meant that I could relate to a lot of people in a lot of different areas. And it was just a really beautiful thing to experience, because I think there's a lot of merit in going after like a brain fart. And actually, this is exactly what Disabled and Proud was. Like, it was literally just a brain fart that I had one night driving on my car home. And like, I'm fortunate enough that I was able to act upon it. And so I did. And that's why, really. I just wanted to hear good conversations with good representation, because, the two narratives that, British media swings between are just not a true reflection of what it's like to be disabled in today's society. So
Mhm.
why do I not do that and create that representation for somebody else, because somebody might be looking for it.
So, in the same way that I often feel frustrated at what mainly tabloid newspapers serve up, and I kind of always question
Mhm.
myself, my sanity, when I see stories about this celebrity is having an affair, or this sports person is. I'm like, and it just be like front page, Brooke. And I'm like,
Yeah.
who are the people in our country, in the world, that genuinely, and we hear about the lengths of which some journalists will go to find this D-list celebrity, and they'll go through their bloody bins to find a pregnancy test, and they'll be like, right, so-and-so celebrity is pregnant. I'm like, who are the people that want these stories, right? But then my other brain kicks in and says, well, these journalists wouldn't go through that process unless there was a demand for it. So in the same way, you saying that the narratives around disabled people are either they're superheroes or they're like hardcore scroungers, do you feel that's because there is a need to want to hear about those narratives, or is it just the media perpetuating one idea and that becomes the narrative? If you get what I mean.
Do you know what? I think it's a bit of both. And so I have this kind of theory, like around this, where this whole like superhero thing came from. Now, realistically, British media didn't really talk about disability in depth for about the vast majority of human existence. You know, we only really started seeing disabled TV presenters, 15 years ago, realistically. That we hid disability away for such a long period of time that when, you know, we had social media, when we suddenly had TV, when we had these, you know, areas where we were able to kind of see real life, we realized that you know, and I say we as in like society, not as in we as in me and you, we realized that we kind of shut disabled people out, and what we had done was wrong. You know, it's not right to put disabled people into institutions. It's not right to have ugly laws. You know, these things are like fundamentally, ethically actually wrong. And so we kind of then, to counteract that, you know, quote unquote badness or like ethically bad thing that we had been doing to disabled people by discriminating against them because they were disabled, is to elevate them to this superhero status and to be like, oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. So it was very much like a complete swing in the opposite direction, to kind of counteract what had previously been done historically. And so because of that, I think, you know, media feeds into that superhero narrative because, oh my God, like how amazing. And, you know, we hear these stories, people who don't want to live because they're disabled, and all of these like quite tragic stories. The counteraction of that is to elevate it to superhero status. And I think that's kind of how it works, you know. That's a story in society. So like that's in the zeitgeist, but then the media loves to play into that. And you've got to think, particularly when it was like 2012 Paralympics in London, there was such a big hype on this whole like superhero vibe, you know, like superhero Paralympians, they're so amazing, like look at what they can do despite their disability. And it's a bit like it was never despite their disability, it was with their disability. You know, that wasn't, they weren't overcoming it. And this whole idea of overcoming your disability as well is actually inherently problematic. And so I think it, like, to answer your question, it is both. It's something that we as society kind of tell ourselves, but because we tell it in society, and, you know, generally journalism is reflected upon what's going on in society, we kind of feed into that narrative as well. And actually they both completely, they're kind of codependent. They feed each other.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to ask you a question now that totally is separate to what I've just asked you. And it's the one question, well, I ask a couple of questions, all my guests. The first one is, I'm the coolest person in the world, disabled in the world. I'm the coolest disabled person in the world. I literally am, Brooke, right? So you laugh, but deep down, you know it's true, but I'm prepared to be challenged. So I want to know what you think your coolness number out of 10 is. What's your cool number?
Oh my God, I am not a cool person at all. Like, I'm a solid 3. Like, I'm not a cool person. Yeah, like, but 3 is my lucky number. So I'm gonna take, I'm like 3 on the coolness scale. Like, I am not an edgy person. I'm not like, I don't listen to like super cool music. Like, I'm actually really uncool. I'm about a 3, but I'm a very happy 3. Like, I'm
content with 3. I know where I am. I'm a 3. It's fine. I can live with a 3. I like that.
But just also, I think because I could admit that I'm a 3, actually, probably I'm more like a 9.
Makes you a 4. Oh, hang on a minute. I was going to say a 4 or 5. You went straight to 9. You're like, yeah, actually,
you've
I'm
gotta
deep down.
back
I'm
yourself.
probably a 9. I'm probably a 9. You know.
Okay, but you do have to back yourself. So in this situation, I'm going to back myself. Realistically, probably a 3. But the fact that I can admit that and be like, actually, I'm quite uncool, probably makes me quite cool. You know,
being self-deprecating, you think adds an extra 6 on the scale. Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Is
I
that what
think
you're
so.
saying?
I think I wear it with pride. You know, I know what I'm talking about.
Humble's the new cool. Is that what you're saying? Humble is the new cool.
Yeah, I think so. I do think so.
All right, we're going to come back to that 3 because I'm challenging that already. But okay, you've put a 3 out there. We're going to come back to that. And just on your podcast as well, how are you finding it? Are you enjoying it? And are you getting from it, as you explained, the original kind of premise of it? Are you getting from it what you wanted to get from it? What you thought you'd get from it? Is it going where you wanted it to go?
Yeah, I mean, I've done over 100 episodes now. And I'll be honest, I've had a bit of a break recently, but that's more because life has kind of got in the way in terms of bought a
Buying
house,
houses.
renovated house. You know, that inherently that's really stressful. But also I have a normal day-to-day job. Creating podcasts, as much as I would love it to be my full-time job, it absolutely is not. It's a passion project for me. And I've had quite a lot going on with my work that, actually pays me my livable wage. And so I've had a little bit of a break from it recently, but I'm so excited to get back into it because every conversation I have kind of brings something new to my zone of influence, And I always I'm like you, I'm really nosy. I love chatting with people and I love finding out their stories because everybody's story is different. And I think that's really important when it comes to disability, is that actually no 2 narratives are the same. And to be able to have a platform to discuss that is so important, because you might not relate to someone that I've spoken to, but you might relate to someone in 3 weeks' time. And isn't that incredible that disability is just completely individual, and being able to share that, what power, what an actual power that we've got to be able to have these conversations. So absolutely, I've definitely, every time I have a new conversation, I learn something new. I get to speak to new people, and just hearing other people smashing it when actually the world is quite often against them. I think there's something really powerful in that. And there's something about, rising up and standing on the shoulders of giants that I really love. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves of that, is that, I wouldn't necessarily have this platform if other disabled people before me hadn't fought for my rights and stuff. So as much as I'm doing it for the generation in front of me, I'm also doing it as a thank you to the generation behind me, because thank God for them for acting and doing what they did so that I could do what I can do now.
And who are the people, if there are any, that have disabilities? Who are your idols? Who are the people that you look to and be like, yeah, she's cool, he's cool. I would love to speak to that person. That person's work has really inspired me or enabled me to kind of have the confidence to do X.
So I always really look at Judith Heumann. So she was the American activist who worked heavily in government, and she was a disabled woman. And I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Netflix, Crip Camp. But anyway, it's an absolute, so she was one of the main women in that documentary. And I read her book multiple times, and I just think she really fought. And obviously I know it's America, but it does translate over to the UK. Being able to fight when literally people are saying no, and governmental people are saying no to your face, and still being so absolutely die hard, deathly believing in what you believe in and taking no for an answer, is just, how can that not inspire you to do better, but also to do the same for other people? Because I feel if you have that power and you are able, and not everybody is, and that's absolutely fine, but if you are able to lend your voice to a conversation where you should, then why not do it? And it's essentially it's not necessarily about me, and I don't mean that in a philosophical way, but my voice is one of many millions and hundreds, but at least I've contributed something to the conversation when the conversation needs to be had.
No, for sure. And you mentioned her being American. Am I right in saying that you grew up in the States? Is that right? Have I just
No, I worked in the States in my early 20s though.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Go on,
so
go
I
on.
worked in New York from like the ages of 21 to 24. And it was just like my favorite time period so far. I mean,
Tell me
don't get
why.
me wrong. I just had the most incredible experience. I think it was my first time that I lived in a different country. All the people that I met were people that I wasn't like clumped with. So you know how at school you're like clumped with people, so you make friends, and you're at uni, so you're clumped with people and you make friends. And I went to America and I knew nobody, and then I came away with some of the most incredible friendships that I've still got to this day. And I think it was that first time that I'd been away from home in terms of living in a different country. I've always been very independent at home, but it was like I literally lived in a different time zone. I lived like across the sea. It was like 8 hours plus to get home, and that was only the flight. Um, and it was just one of those very like magical experiences that I think, hate to sound like the most classic, well-educated white blonde woman, but like traveling does do something for you. Like,
You did it, Brooke. You
I
did
think
it.
it is true, and I'm very
I'm
aware of
joking.
the
I'm joking.
privilege with that, though, and like there is a lot of privilege in me saying that, but it did make me who I am today, and yeah, it was just my favorite few years were just spent like running around New York City, just being a bit reckless and having fun.
America versus the UK. Which one's better?
Oh my god, the UK right now? Are you joking me? Can you imagine? Oh, that fat what's it? Like, who thought that was a good idea? Who actually thought that that was a
Most of the
really good
country,
idea? Which is
millions
so
and millions.
concerning, right? Like, it's so concerning because we're sat here and we're like, what an absolute cluster. Like who thought that was a good idea? And everyone's like, oh, like MAGA hats here and MAGA hats there. Are you mad? Like, are you mad? Have you had an IQ test recently? Clearly not.
I
That's where
find the
we're
whole
at.
Trump I find the whole Trump thing really interesting because I don't share his politics, and what we see from him, I don't particularly think
Mm-mm.
is a very nice person. But I think there's a lesson to be learned in politicians and globally. But if we look at over in this country here in the UK, one thing you can't dispute with Trump is that he's trustworthy. And when I say trustworthy, I mean that by the definition of the word, in that he
Yeah, I
says
know
what
exactly what
he
you
does what he's
mean.
going to say. Do you know what I mean? What he says he's
He
going to
shows
do,
you who
he
he is
does it.
immediately.
Well, exactly. And I think there's a lesson to be learned as far as another reason why people that have trust in politics in the UK is because they're fed up of being told, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and nothing
Yeah.
being done. So for you may
Mm-hmm.
despise Trump, you may not share his politics, but there's even people on the left in America can't deny is that he says 10 things he's going to do, 7 are going through. And then by the time he's got 7
Yeah.
through, the other 3 don't really matter because everyone
Yeah, because
forgets
he's come
those
through on
ones.
7.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think there's a lesson there for politicians. It's not about his politics for me that's interesting. It's the fact that he's a guy that just says nonsense, but he gets it through, whether he
He
believes it or not.
delivers on said nonsense.
Exactly. And I think
He does.
if you're a voter, I think what you want to know now is I don't even necessarily, well, I do care what you do, but it's more about can you do it? If I'm going to give you my
Yeah.
vote and you're going to pledge to me you're going to be the guy, I need to know that
Mhm.
you're the guy. And I think people on the left are jealous that they don't share his
Yeah.
politics, but they're jealous that there's a guy that committed to his base and is for them anyway delivering. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I like he shows you who he is and he delivers on that promise. And
Mm.
there's no in between. Like, we all know who he is, we all know what he's like, we all know what he does. Like, he just shows you who he is, but when it comes to like actually holding some serious power in the world, that can be quite frightening.
Very, 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 very. I'm sure that Trump will be a theme on my podcast over the coming weeks, months, and years. Yay. Now, I mentioned in the intro, Brooke, that you are an adaptive athlete. And as I
Yeah.
mentioned, I've never heard this phrase until about 6 months ago. So just tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about what that is, because when I did some Googling, you're basically like the new school Jane Fonda on steroids. Like, sorry for our younger listeners and viewers there, Joe. I've shown my age there, but you're like who's like the female Joe Wicks on acid. You're like the hardcore. You're picking up buildings. You're bench pressing cars. Tell us a little bit more about what that actually means.
So I started CrossFit the back end of 2020 when gyms like reopened again. And I was always really interested in it because I think there's something really valuable, particularly for women, being strong. And like science shows that, the stronger you are in terms of like your muscle mass, it only improves your like longevity and your quality of life. Factual. I've always been a really sporty person. I've always done school sports, and then when I was at uni, I played uni hockey. Like I've always done some form of activity, and going into CrossFit was like the first time that I didn't have like scholastic input into my activity, and it was very much like me that had chosen the activity. Don't get me wrong, I chose uni hockey, but I chose uni hockey because I loved it so much at school. So this was kind of like my first foray into like adult PE, as I like to call it, your chosen activity. And I didn't really know too much about it. Like I just thought it looked really cool. Like I thought, oh, how cool would it be to be able to like fling some weight around and then be able to go on a run all within like the same 20 minutes and like, feel good from that, like that would be incredible. I was used to like playing hockey still half cut from the night before. Amazing experience, but actually like in terms of longevity, probably not that great for you. Yeah. And then I got into it, and then I found that there was this like underground hub of people, and they were calling themselves adaptive athletes, and it was very much like new. It wasn't Paralympians, because that was never my vibe. Like I don't want to be a Paralympian. I think what they do is incredible, and like the things that they can put their body through, incredible, amazing. But that's just not my trajectory. I just love sports for loving sports' sake. And so being an adaptive athlete kind of is that I'm a disabled person, but I'm also enjoying sport. But I'm recognizing that actually sports can sometimes be a bit more difficult for me because, it's not necessarily adapted by the rule makers. So I have to make my own adaptations. And actually that's kind of cool because I feel like I get to play with all the cards, and I'm making sure that it works for me. And I love that about it, because I can go into the gym today, tomorrow, next week, and how I do one move will be vastly different each time, but I still get the work done, and I'll just see whichever one feels the best. And like, isn't that amazing? Like, how cool is that?
I love that. And talk me through when you do adapt the program, the schedule, the actual exercises. Talk me through what that looks like.
So I'm really, really lucky. I go to an excellent CrossFit gym, like a really, really top tier, and like the coaches there are next level. And I can wholeheartedly say that it's absolutely them that have brought on my fitness and my athleticism and my strength absolute tenfold, because they're incredible. And having people, I think, behind you who want to help support you kind of makes that experience even better, because I think going at it alone in the gym, amazing if you can do that. But I am someone who vibes off people, and like I go to the gym to socialize and see my friends, but also I go there to get fit, and having that group of people who are really behind me no matter what, no matter if I drop a weight plate on my foot or I fall off the rig or, something doesn't quite work out, they've still got my back no matter what, is incredible. So for me, it's about going into the gym. I'll see what the workout is on the board. I'll go through it with the coach. We'll talk about a couple of adjustments. What I love the most is it's about what I want to do. Not about necessarily their input and what their advice is, but like, what do you want to do? What do you think would work best? And it's a collaboration between me and the coaches, because obviously they're coaches, that is their job. And I'm me, and I know what my body can do, and I know what my capacity is. So being able to have that conversation and a collaboration is valuable, because there have been times where I've gone into places and it's been like, you have to do this because you are an adaptive athlete and you can't do this, and that's against the rule book, and that, for me kind of takes all the enjoyment and fun out of it. So being able to have those conversations, figure out what I want to do, if I want to push myself, if I want to take it back, how can we adapt this so that it's comfortable for me and I can hold on for like, however long the workout is. It's all about conversation and communication, and being able to push myself a bit further as well. And I love that, whether that's with, I use straps and I use weight plates in different places. And, if I have to take the weights down a notch, or if I increase the volume, it's all just a collaborative conversation between me and the coaches and the head coach to see what would work best for me. And I sound like I'm overselling it, but it really is one of the most favorite places for me to be, because it's maybe one of the places where I think as a disabled person, quite often in life, people look to you for the answer about disability, like whatever the question may be. And actually, I don't always have the answer. And in this particular space, when I don't have the answer, it's almost even better, because then it means that I can try something new and I've got that support to be able to do that. And whereas I think sometimes out in society, if you don't have the answer, people don't understand and they get a bit confused and they think, all disabled people are the same and we're a monolith, blah, 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 blah. But in this particular space, like, I'm allowed to just be a disabled person who might not have the answer. And that's like a very valuable place to be. And I love it.
And for other people who are disabled, who are also into sports, activity, and fitness, is this something that is it easy for people to find these places? And what was your gym experience like before you became an adaptive athlete? When you went to a regular gym, in inverted commas, what was your, a normal gym? What was your experience like in those places? Did you feel uncomfortable? Did you find it difficult to kind of adapt it, the word there, to what works for you?
I think it can be really difficult going into like a commercial gym and not really knowing what's going on, because some of the machines look like torture devices. And that's like, like you go in and you're like, what is that for? You have no idea. And so if I can't translate it onto like a quote unquote normal body, how in the hell am I going to translate it to my body? Because my body is not a normal body. Like my left side is predominantly a lot more stronger than my right side. How do you do that? And there's not just like, there are PTs scoping the shop floor, but they're literally looking for clients. And so sometimes I don't want to be sold to. I don't want to be pitched to. I want someone to be able to help me out. And so I don't necessarily love commercial gyms for that. I don't necessarily love commercial gyms for disabled people, because if you are having to adapt, you do need that level of support. However, there are a lot of great athletes out there on Instagram, on YouTube, who show all what they use. They might have similar disabilities to you, what they use in a commercial gym, and that's absolutely fine. And I always say, go ahead and experience it for yourself, because what I like might not be what you like. I just really enjoy like chatting things through and having like a professional input, but also knowing that if I fall on my bum, someone is going to catch me. And I like to have that safety net. So go ahead and experience it, see what happens.
Well, I had a little quick look of this SXSW, these shenanigans here, and it's like hardcore, man. I'm like, I can barely like do 4 press ups, like, and this just looks like people that are just like absolute beasts. And I just wanted to know, like, when, because you're small but no doubt strong. When you rock up, what's the reaction? Have you had any kind of like negative feedback? Do people look at you and think like, do they have like preconceptions about what you can and can't do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that, to be fair, that's been like my entire sporting career. So I used to swim when I was younger, and like my stroke was breaststroke, and I was in the school team all the way up until I was like 16, till I stopped swimming, really. And it would always be the case that I would like go onto the blocks, and I could literally see it. It was almost like a Mexican wave of like people going, oh my God, look at her, look at her, look at her. Oh my God. And you'd be like, yeah, she's a one-handed girl, she's swimming. Like, I'm not going to go around in circles. I'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. But they would all be like, and then I'd have people either side of me, and they would look at me and they'd be like, I've got this race in the bag. Like, yes, like, thank God she's in my heat. Like, I'm going to win. Which messed up mentality. Yeah, literally like, oh, like, this is not a hard day at the office. And then it would be like, get ready, whistle's gone, in the water, and I've won. And people were like, ugh. And I'd be like, well, don't underestimate me. That was your own fault. Like, that was everybody in this room. That was that was all of your fault. And I always remember, like, even when I was younger, swim coaches would all just stand there, and they would also see it happen as well. And they just stand there with their clipboard and be like, just with their watches, waiting for it to happen, and be like, yeah, she's gonna go. Yeah, there we go. And I think maybe that added a bit of fuel to the fire as well, because I'd be like, no, fuck you guys. Like, I'm gonna show you. How dare you judge me before you've even seen me compete? And so as I've got older, I think that's probably been a bit of my mentality. And so now, like, I do CrossFit, like local CrossFit competitions. I don't do like the big ones because it's not for me. But I rock up and people are like, oh, how come how can we, oh, is it fair? Like, can we make this work for you? Like, like how can we support you? And I'm like, okay, like I've been doing this long enough to walk in and be like, okay, I know what I need and I know what support I need from you
I'll be
guys, but
fine.
like I'm good. Like we don't need to wrap me in cotton wool. Like I have actually actively paid for this out of my own money. Like and so I think a lot of people are then, they don't know whether to stop and stare or like be inspired, and there tends to be like a mixture as like progress through the competition. I get more and more support, whereas at first people are like, oh, I don't know if I can watch or not, like, or is there like some morbidity in watching a disabled girl really like throw herself into a hardcore workout and almost putting herself like in a pain cave? Is there something morbid about that? Yeah, probably. But is it also a really good laugh? Absolutely. It's good fun.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about something that I want to speak to most of my guests about, Brooke, is dating and relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because like I've got a disability, but mine is not visible. Like unless I wear
Mhm.
shorts or I tell you or you've seen my work, you just
Yeah.
wouldn't know, right? You don't have you don't have that, right? Your disability
No.
is visible. So I'm
Mhm.
always keen to kind of understand the experiences of people who are in a chair or who have a visible disability where you can see it,
Yeah.
and the process, especially in this era now of online dating. Do you
Mhm.
kind of disclose all your details versus no, let's hold something back and see how they react when
Uh-huh.
we first meet, because that's going to be very telling. What's been your experience in terms of dating and relationships through the prism of your disability?
Yeah, interesting. So I was very much like a relationships girly from like my late teens until like my mid 20s, and I've this is the first time that I've really been like quote unquote single for like a long period of time. And so
Mm,
dating has been a really interesting experience for me, and particularly with like online dating, I make it very very clear that I've got a disability, because I think, what's the point in me hiding it? Because you're going to find out anyway if we meet. And like, if you can't like it now, or you can't get on board with it now, then there's no point in me even wasting my time with you or wasting my breath. Like, it is what it is. Like it or lump it, I am who I am.
mm,
And so it's been really interesting, because I think it's one of those ones where it's almost like an immediate bullshit detector. I can tell whether or not you just liked me because you want to look like you're being a good person, or like you're actually genuinely interested in actively having a conversation with me. And that I find fascinating. And I've kind of look at dating as almost like a psychological experiment. Because I'm like, well, this is the only time I'm going to be able to do it, right? And like really like look at how we as people like interact with each other. And my job, like I always say this as a bit of a joke, but actually it's true, like my life is literally pickled in disability. Like everything that I do in terms of like my work all surrounds disability, whether it's the podcast, whether it's like my actual paid job is also like in disability in some respects. And
mhm,
now that I also consult on the side as well, like I'm heavily involved in it. So if you can't get on board with that, or it makes you feel uncomfortable, there's actually no point in us talking, because
mm.
like it's my bread and butter. And I love having these conversations. I wouldn't be who I am without them. So yeah, like it or lump it, I am who I am, and I make it very obvious who I am immediately. So it's up to you whether or not you get on board or not. And if you don't, well, you're lost, because I'm great crack.
I'm a great crack. See, we're going from a 3 to a 5 now. You see, I'm a great crack. You
Oh,
see,
come on, I'm higher than a 5.
I said, going. We're moving. We're moving. We're moving. We're moving.
She's going
So,
up the scale.
no, no, listen. I'm trying to be humble and modest. In that, when you said you were 3 in terms of your coolness, I'm like, you're not a 3. You're super cool. But just on the dating thing, Brooke, what are some of the more awkward and slash funny
Yeah.
reactions, things that have been said? Just have there been any kind of like really horrifically
Oh, I've
funny
got so many
incidents?
like tales of like what people have sent me. So I had one guy on Bumble message me like an entire essay as to why I will never understand the lyrics to Red Right Hand. So like the theme tune to Peaky Blinders. It's called Red Right
I
Hand.
do. I do.
And so he sent me like an entire essay as to why I'd never understand it. And I was like, it's like, I just think that's quite niche. Like, that was quite a niche introduction. Like, So I've had things like that, and then I've had like
Sorry,
moments
I
where
can't.
people,
Sorry.
true, absolutely true. Like a full blown like, oh, like I feel so sorry for you, like you'll never understand it. And I was like, I'm just not sure you fully grasp that it's actually about politics, not literally like a right hand. Anyway, that like
It's
swerve
not
that
that deep.
one. Like, yeah, exactly. I've had people wanting to send me money to like take pictures of my arm and like, you know, bend your elbow and I'll send you £100. And I'm like,
Wow.
sorry, what?
Wow. I mean, there's there's feet pictures, and then there's elbow
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, like some real weird like experiences. But to be fair, all of the people that I've met are all like good people. So, you know, I had like this happens like once in a blue moon. And it is quite funny. And I think you kind of do just have to take it with a pinch of salt, because I think, right, I'm getting because I'm disabled, but then there are people out there who just get and I'm like, well, here we are. It's the dating world. We're 2025. It
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Like, you know, ultimately it's all a bit of fun, isn't it? Like at the end of the day,
Of
it's not that deep. We're on a spinning rock.
of course, of course. Do you have, Brooke? Because I've got a few. Do you have like a really up? This is how I lost my arm story. Because I've got a this is how I lost my leg story. I've got a couple actually. Do you have like a
Yeah.
real? Do you like mess with them a little bit?
Yeah,
'Cause I
yeah.
do.
I think I just, do you know what? I once read something and I've never ever unread it. And it was that people who have a limb difference, regardless of what limb it is, you are just slightly chaotic naturally because you put your body together, which is true, right? With prosthetics. So like there's kind of something a bit unnatural and a bit chaotic about like pulling apart your body and putting it back together. And like as limb different people, we just have that kind of in us, right? And so I would absolutely, yeah, of course I've got stories. I'm like slightly chaotic as it is, but like my two generally are I was surfing and a shark bit it off.
I've got that one. Yeah, I had that
Classic
one once.
story.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
like I
yeah,
think
yeah.
every limb different person has it, you know. I think it's like it's almost like a universal one that we can all kind of bond over because we've all got the same tail but like different variations.
Where was your
And
one?
then like
I've interest.
um in the UK, and then people are like,
Okay.
really? And I'm like, and then you go into it and I'm like, come on, like we're in the UK, like sharks don't really swim in our waters. However, if
It was
they
on Bournemouth
had,
Beach.
yeah, exactly, like, oh, I was down in Brighton and I decided to go into the like, sea. Don't be so ridiculous. And also, on that note, if that had happened, that would have been front page news and I
You
would
would
have
know
been in the
about it.
newspaper. Like, I would have multiple clippings of my face as front page news. Incredible. Like, and I
Survived the
haven't.
shark attack.
So, yeah, exactly. So that never happened. But then quite a morbid one that, oh, it is like, have you ever seen the film Creep? And it's about like the test
I
tube baby
haven't.
that went wrong in the London Underground. Yeah, it's like it's kind
No.
of like a horror sci-fi. Oh, that's a bit weird. I went through a phase of telling people that like I wasn't getting enough nutrients from my mum's placenta, and so the best option was for me
Ooh.
to eat my own arm.
And I'm gonna put good money, Brooke. Somebody believed that. Somebody
Oh my
believed
god,
it.
yeah, like multiple people, and I'm like there, and I'm like, oh, darling, not that smart, are we?
You're not for me. Let's leave it here.
No, like, yeah, like, thank you so much. This was real fun, mainly for me because I'm giggling. See you later, bye. You're
Let's leave
probably
it there.
traumatized.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm always fascinated. I'm generally fascinated by dating stories. Period. But when people have
Yeah,
disabilities and they kind of talk to me about the sort of reactions, how they kind of like manipulate situations, how
yeah.
awkwardness. Like someone was in a
Mm.
chair and they didn't know whether to help the person into the restaurant, and I just love that. I can't get enough of those sorts of dating stories, but also relationship stories. So when you're with someone,
Mhm.
just kind of the mechanics of just being normal and also asking for help when you need help, but the person
Yeah.
not being afraid to ask questions and all that sort of stuff. I just find that stuff really, really
Mm-hmm.
fascinating and interesting. So the final question I'm going to ask you, Brooke, is something again I ask all my guests, which is, what is your disability ick?
Oh.
What's the
Okay,
thing
I
that
have.
people do or
Oh.
say that you just like?
Okay, so I actually have a few.
Oh,
I do
okay,
have a
shoot,
few.
fire
So
away.
my first one is like my disability is my superpower.
Okay.
Hate it, cannot stand it. Cannot stand it. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
overhyped, overplayed. And you also actually, if you're saying like my disability is my superpower, you don't actually have any cultural understanding of disability history. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my personal viewpoint, but like
Okay.
leave it at that because I think that's a sentence in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next one, oh, this could ruffle some real
Do
feathers.
it. Do it. Ruffle those feathers. Come on.
So
I'm here for it.
I have not known life without disability. So I don't know what it's like when you become disabled. Like I don't have that experience. However, one thing that I don't know how we do this, and I sound like I'm being a bit militant, but when someone acquires a disability, I think there should be a lag time before they're allowed to speak about it publicly. Because I think there's this idea of I've just become disabled and now that's semi my personality and I'm going to make a bit of a career out of it. Absolutely fine. But that also comes with levels of psychological trauma of acquiring a disability that actually you need to deal with privately before you suddenly like expose your story online. And that can come within 5 days, 5 hours, 5 years, 50 years. At some point, you need to address those things because your life has changed. And I'm not necessarily sure that a lot of people do address those changes. And I think that can be quite difficult for people who work in the disabled space and are trying to, change things from a point of view where it's, like it's not a superpower and actually sometimes life is a bit more difficult, but this is how we work around it and this is what we do, rather than like I've now become disabled and it's my whole entire
Mm.
personality and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about it all the time without having gone through like, a bit of acceptance and realization, but
Mm-hmm.
also having a bit of knowledge of disability history, because I do think it's really important that like I genuinely believe that everybody should know about where they've come from. And I don't mean like geographically, I mean like the people before them who fought for the same cause. And if you don't have that, you can be going against what everybody else is saying. And I think, we're kind of drawn in by these stories of like, oh, I don't know, like there was a car crash, or like, oh, I was in a plane accident, or, I'm just thinking of ways people acquire disability without dealing with actually you kind of need to have a bit of an adjustment period before you necessarily talk about it.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. I think that's a fair opinion. I like that. Cool. And what's the dumbest thing someone has ever said to you, or dumbest thing you've ever heard somebody say about disability?
Oh, okay. So I I every now and then will have a cheeky cigarette. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know it's not good for you. I just enjoy one with a drink. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know my limits. However, I was once with a friend and she turned to me and she was like, is smoking even worse for you because you only have one hand? So there's less of like you to travel around in the body. And I was like,
Wow. Yeah,
I'm
I've
just
got to
not sure
go.
what you said, but like,
I've got to go.
I think
Go
our
go over
buses have
there.
just
You go over
crossed.
there. Yeah.
Like, you need to leave on that one, and I'm going on
Yeah.
this one because I'm just not sure that like 2 and 2 is making 4 in your head.
Wow. There's levels
And
of
I like,
dumbness.
yeah, and that was like really, and this girl's like intelligent, like super, and I was literally there, and I was like,
Oh dear. Oh
like
dear.
I'm not necessarily sure what you just said.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Of all the dumb things, that's definitely up there. Listen, Brooke, you said at the start that you think you were a 3. I mean /9, but let's go 3. Your coolest number out of 10. we didn't get to speak about the fact that you're a public speaker and you do so many fantastic events, exhibitions. And you talk a lot of sense. And I'm going to get you back on the pod to speak about that more. So, you're the strongest woman on the planet, and you also are just super dope. So I don't think you're a 3. In fact, you're not a 3. I'm gonna put you in the solid 8. Solid 8. I think it's a solid 8. Yeah. I mean, it's not. You don't beat me.
It's not you. Yeah,
It's
not
not
levels of
me.
you.
But
Yeah.
but come on. But an 8 is very, very high. That's a really high mark. So
I'm
I
gonna
think we're
stick to like a 3, but secretly a 9 because I'm like I like that. Also, I
and you're
really
allowed to
like
do that.
multiples of 3. Like I really enjoy multiples of 3. Like that makes
There
me
was
feel
3,
good,
6, or 9. That was what it's
Yeah,
going to be. 3, 6,
that's
or
my
9.
scale. That's what we're working with.
We'll go with 9. We'll go with 9. Listen, Brooke, shout out your podcast for people listening or watching where they can find your fantastic podcast. First of all,
Yeah, it's called Disabled and Proud, and if you Google it, you'll find it. It's got a YouTube channel, and it's everywhere you find your podcast. So give it a little look up and go and listen. Disabled and Proud.
I'll make sure we put the link in our notes for this episode as well. So I agree. I've seen multiple episodes of that podcast, and I recommend it highly. It's really good listen. And one thing I did rate about you, I'll just say quickly as well, is your consistency. Because as you say, when the podcast is not your main job, doing those podcasts so often, so regular, I think is the bigger challenge in actually doing them. It's the kind of staying doing it. So big up. Big up you. Listen, Brooke, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast this week. I've loved speaking to you. I definitely will get you back on because you are super dope. I am the coolest person in the world, but you have definitely challenged and pushed me all the way with all the great things that you are doing. Don't forget to please subscribe, share, back in the WhatsApps, all that good stuff. And I will see you all next time. Peace. Take care.